Coming up, possibly the most likable person I've ever interviewed. Such a great storyteller. It's a special one today because we're going to tell the story of a beloved song that was the final number one hit of the 70s. And it would have been the first number one hit of the 80s, but Payola ruined that. Although he did hit number one a week into the new decade. But it's ironic that this song was the last number one of the 70s and the one of the first of the 80s because the song itself has one foot in both decades. And to think its singer and creator had a completely different lyric when he went into the recording booth, but in a split second, he changed the main lyric from one unique phrase to another that was completely off the wall. And that split second decision changed everything. He was freaking out because he had some crazy wordplay that he had to do to make the syllables fit in the song. And he had to have a second drummer in the song as well to make it all fit. But it became one of the most famous songs ever. The story, really good ones, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you tried to find that garbage pail kid that had your name in it, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the white button and click the bell so you know when our stuff comes out. Also, check us out at professorofrock.com. Sign up there. So it's time for another episode of our series Revelations, where featured artists reveal rare stories about their greatest songs and their greatest albums. Information you won't find anywhere else. On this installment of Revelations, I'm excited. We get the straight story of a song that was the last number one hit of the 70s, and then it fell to number two in the first week of the 80s, only to regain the top spot in the second week of the new decade. Payola caused that. Talk about it in the interview. It was the right song at the right time as it had one foot in the 70s and one in the 80s. Talking about Escape, the Pina Colada Song.
If you like pina coladas.
From the most likable storyteller of his time, the ultra multi-talented Rupert Holmes. And now, depending on who you speak to, I've heard people lay claim to this song as a 70s hit, just as many say it's an 80s hit. It undoubtedly has a strange aura around it, seems to hypnotize you as a listener, and the story of how Rupert Holmes created it, it's just as fascinating. It was actually supposed to be If You Like Humphrey Bogart. And then in the middle of the recording, Rupert changed that lyric to Pina Coladas, just out of nowhere. He'd never even had one. So let's get into it. You're going to love this guy. In 1979, you released your fifth studio album, Partners in Crime, and from that breakthrough album came the mega smash, Escape, the Pina Colada Song.
If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the...
Last song to hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100 in the 70s. And the placeholder title for the song I always read was People Need Other People. Tell me how that song came about.
It's a long story. You got time for it?
I've got time.
Okay,
I've been waiting years to ask you about this.
Well, it's a complicated story. And again, it's one of those things where I made a couple of decisions in a period of 10 seconds, and it changed the course of my life and that record. I was recording my fifth album. My previous album had a record that started to climb the charts, and then that label went out of business. So I still hadn't had a real, genuine hit. This was my fifth LP. And I had a preponderance of ballads on the album.
Think about the people that you'd never get to love.
I needed some up-tempo songs. My office was on Fifth Avenue, and I looked out the window at Fifth Avenue, and I noticed that there were nothing but Italian designer stores on the street. And I started humming a song that went, Fiorucci, baby, with your new Gucci shoes. Poochie Poochie, baby, Gucci G's, Gucci Goose. And I said, well, let me see if I can make that into a song. And I started to write a song that went, people need other people. I believe you will find. And we recorded the cut. My great drummer, Leo Adamian, on that album said, you know, this groove is such that I could use a second drummer on the record. Someone who will keep the basic groove so I can do more playing around on the toms and cymbals and do some, because it's got kind of a side down, backwards reggae feel to it. So we hired a second drummer for that one song.
What I love about the song is the story song is really in 3 acts.
When you record a song, you usually do a take and then go into the control room to hear how it sounds. It's really a dry run. So we did one take of this song, and I was at the piano. We recorded it atop Radio City Music Hall on the 7th floor at a studio at that time called Plaza Sound. And if you listen to the opening bars of the record, you can hear distantly my voice bleeding into the piano mic going, people. Because I'm singing, people need other people. And you can just hear that bleeding into the piano. And my guitarist, Dean Balin, had some nice little tight noodling. And we did something that was very uncommon at that time, mainly because it was impossible to do physically. But this is the analog era. We recorded on 2-inch tape. And what we did is we duped off those 16 bars that were tight of this record. And then Jim Boyer edited together with a razor and tape all those pieces of tape until we had a 4-minute loop of just those 16 bars. So now what do I have? I have a track that has a pretty good rhythm feel to it, but people need other people won't fit with that because people need other people at a chorus and this and that. So now I have to write a song to this existing track. And I realize it better be a story song, and luckily that's my specialty. So now it's the night before our last day of recording is booked in Plaza Sound. And I'm sitting at my kitchen table, and I look across the table, and I see the Village Voice is there, and it has all these personal columns on the back of it. I thought, what would happen to you if you ever answered one of those ads? And I started to write this lyric. The chorus began, if you like Humphrey Bogart and getting caught in the rain.
He's looking at you, kid.
I go to the studio the next day. My guitar player, Dean Balin, is with me in the studio. So I said to him, and I said to the engineer, Eric Block, I'm going to sing the song all the way through. Just as I'm about to sing it, I think, you know, Humphrey Bogart is a black and white image. That's noir. This couple in the story, they're not noir. They're looking for something, they want escape. And I thought about the fact that when you go on a vacation to the Caribbean, the first day you're on the beach, you want to order something that comes in a hollowed out pineapple. What are those drinks? What are the escape drinks? Mai Tai, daiquiri, pina colada. I had never had a pina colada in my entire life. And I said, if you like Humphrey Bogart, no. If you like I added an extra eighth note and went, if you like pina coladas. I said, oh, that actually works pretty well. Pina colada. So that's what I'll do.
If you like pina coladas.
The song, the vocal that you hear on that record is the first time I ever sang the song. And you hear me having the fun of discovering the song.
If you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain.
And because I had never checked the song against the track, I had a couple of moments, some bumpy moments where I thought, I've got too many syllables here. So I had to do things like go, I've got to meet you by tomorrow noon.
I've got to meet you by tomorrow noon.
And that's because I suddenly realized I had too many syllables and I had to cram them all in. Or in one case, I realized I had too few and I said, I am into champagne.
I am into champagne.
Stretching them out. And what you're hearing is me having the fun and excitement and exuberance of telling a joke for the first time to my guitar player, Dean Balin, basically, to see if he gets the punchline before I get to it. When I finished the vocal, I went into the control room. I said, did you see it coming? He said, no, I didn't. I really didn't see it coming.
It was my own lovely lady.
I had conjured up this idea of the islands and this pina coladas. I said, this break that we do, this instrumental break, it's got to be like a mini vacation. It's got to sound like we're in the islands. The first thing we did was this line, da 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 da, but it had to have a soaring sound to it. Really above the clouds. Then I had him add a sliding guitar like a Hawaiian guitar, da 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 da, as if it's like what you hear at a luau. Okay, then I added some flutes on a synthesizer. I added a little kind of alto flute parts to kind of make it sound kind of ethereal. And then I got my synthesizer to make the sound of surf. and I rolled some surf across the record in the middle of the instrumental break. So if you listen carefully, you'll hear da 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 like that. And pretty soon we had this very, very lustrous and kind of Martin Denny Paradise Hawaiian style. The break was inspired by that decision I made in 10 seconds before I sang the song to not say Humphrey Bogart and to say Pina Colada. And it sends terror down my spine to think, if you hadn't made a Pina Colada impulsively, that decision happened, you wouldn't have made that break, the record wouldn't have been as entertaining. What happens in the song is that you get these three little, I was very pleased that you said the story's kind of in 3 acts. In between those 3 acts are 3 little vacations that you get orally. And then you get back to the narrator, and the narrator is having the fun of telling the story for the first time.
Where we'll plan our escape.
Now, when I went to do the good vocal, to sing it properly, after we created this guitar break section, I found I couldn't get the energy and the exuberance that I had when I had sung it that first time. I said, well, you know what? This is never going to be a single or anything like that. This is just a song I need to keep some up-tempo material on the album. So I said, you know what? We'll just let it fly out there, imperfect as it is, warts and all. And I said, what I'll do is I'll add some harmony. I'll put my own vocal and sing a harmony in the chorus. The first chorus will have a harmony. The third chorus, I'll add a really high harmony at the end, kind of like what the Searchers did on Needles and Pins, which was one of my favorite records of all time. I'll add some like 3-part with one of the harmony parts being way up in the stratosphere. I'll have to scream to do it.
If you like making love at midnight.
And that was the record. And my record label came to me and said, we're putting it out as a single. I said, no, the single is him.
What's she gonna do about him?
Him is the hit. They said, our guys think this is it. And they said, and we're getting great response, but we have a problem. You called the song Escape, and everyone's asking for the song about the Pina Coladas. So do you mind if we call it Escape, parenthesis, the Pina Colada Song? Otherwise, we're going to get no momentum. We're getting a lot of airplay, but people are going to record stores and saying, I want that song about the Pina Colada Song. So all of that went into the making of this one song that absolutely, completely changed the course of my life and is still having an effect on it some 40 years later. And it's miraculous to me that I meet kids who their parents weren't born when the song was a hit, and they know the song.
Last song to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the 70s. Could have been the first in the 80s, but there was a Casey came in for 1 week there.
Please don't go. Don't you hear me say?
I've made that mistake many times of thinking it was the first #1 of the 80s as well.
That whole issue about, was it the last #1 record of the 70s and the first of the 80s? There were 3 trade papers at that time: Cashbox, Record World, and Billboard. In Record World and Billboard, it remained #1 for the first week. There are some who think that Casey and the Sunshine Band, they were on a powerful label. They were on, I think, Atco, which was part of Atlantic Records, big label. And I was on a label that had just gone out of business, Infinity Records. The record was taken up by MCA. But for that period of time, the label was out of business. And there are some people, God forbid I would say that Billboard was suspect in any way, but there was a rumor going around that I was told that someone got to the right person and paid the right amount of money and got them for that 1 week to flip the chart so that Atlantic would have the first #1 record of the 80s. And interestingly enough, the next week, Escape went right back to #1. So I'm just saying, and in the other 2 trades, it stayed #1. So it's not a complete, there's some truth to the idea that I got to end and begin a decade in the #1 slot. Yeah. And I like telling people that in some trade papers, I was at the top of the charts for 2 decades without interruption.
It's probably one of the 5 Mandatory songs for yacht rock, along with Sailing, Christopher Cross.
Sailing takes me away.
This Is It.
Make no mistake where you are.
What a Fool Believes. All that stuff came out around the
Yeah.
same time. It's a lifestyle, really.
Yeah, I think that Jimmy Fallon seems to be very taken with "So I Wrote to the Paper."
So I wrote to the paper.
I noticed when he sings the Pina Colada Song, I think that's the line I think he most enjoys singing. He sung it a couple times now.
To the paper. What'd you take out? To get a personal ad. Are you somebody's
Song, like we said, has been used so much in pop culture. Shrek,
If you like pina colada.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Goldberg,
The love that you've looked for. Write to me and escape.
Grown Ups,
Not into yoga. If you have half a brain.
Deadpool 2 recently.
Living with Yourself.
If you like pina coladas.
Yeah, it's a huge list. It's a huge list. I have to, like, I don't have the list with me, but it's like there's like 30 movies.
Nice Guys,
Like a worn out recording of a favorite.
American Splendor,
You got this movie and I'm getting hitched. We both had a good month, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
the Better Call Saul reference. I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
If you like pina coladas, getting caught in the rain.
Better Call Saul was great. To watch TV and have people tell you that you went to high school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when you didn't.
He went to school here?
Yeah, I was class of '64. He still talks about it.
He said, "No, we're here to celebrate." You know, Rupert Holmes. He went to this school, and I'm saying, "Did I? Did I?" One night, I'm watching Mystery Science Theater 3000, and Joel, who's on this rocket ship with these two robots, he starts explaining the Pina Colada Song to them.
And they don't even know that each other likes pina coladas? What, would they always panic and order Manhattans or something?
There are 20 or 30 songs that are like this in all of pop culture from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's a certain song that takes you exactly to that moment
Yeah.
in time that it came out. And there
Yeah.
are just a few of those songs that do that.
Songs can catapult you. They are time travel. And sometimes even a song that you didn't like at the time, you now have fondness for because it makes you remember that summer, that spring, that girl, that guy.
Music's the only thing that is readily available that can do that. And I hear Escape, and it takes me back. What's cool about it is I have like 15 memories of it now because I have my memory with my kids. My dad, I remember hearing that song in the car, and he'd turn it up. Oh, here's your Pina Colada Song, you know. So it's just cool to pass that on from generation to generation and have those moments with your own kids.
I'm grateful for you acknowledging that happens with music, and your show does a lot of that. A lot of that.
Oh, thank you. What is your favorite moment of all these years with this song?
When I go into it, singing it for a live audience, I get a view that the audience doesn't get. They're looking at me. That's the bad news for them. The good news for me is I'm looking at them. And when I go into the song, the audience's faces transform. This overall experience of now singing it and it meaning something over the course of 40 years to literally millions of people is an extraordinary privilege and joy.
Yes, I like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain.
As you probably know, Rupert is a Tony Award-winning playwright, a television writer, a novelist, and a great recording artist. Oh, man, great story. Thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about this classic song. What are your memories of this song? Do you consider it a 70s song or an 80s song? Let's have a fun discussion below and celebrate this. He's such a great guy. I always enjoy talking to Rupert. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.